So I think we can all agree that no place is perfect, right? There's pros and cons to a lot of different areas, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because Gilbert, I'm just going to be honest, it's not for everyone. Ironically, when I first moved to Arizona or the Phoenix metro area, I was like, there is no chance I'm living in Gilbert. So it's kind of ironic. Now I live here, and I absolutely love it. It's my home, and I've definitely fallen in love with this city more and more every day. It's very charming to me, but there's a lot of people like when I'm doing the initial consultation on a phone call, trying to figure out like the right places in the Phoenix metro area that may work, there's a lot of times where I'm like, you guys, I really don't think Gilbert's for you. And I'm kind of, showing them other places, maybe Scottsdale, maybe it's Mesa, maybe it's Queen Creek, areas that may better suit their needs and their lifestyle. So the goal of this video is really to give you some insight into reality of living here, right? It's not just rainbows and butterflies, and hopefully give you an idea if it's worth pursuing, particularly before you start home shopping or buying a home. And if you're unfamiliar with me, I'm Courtney Strzelczyk from Real Broker. I'm an agent here in the East Valley. And my goal for this channel is really to give you insight into what it's like to live in Gilbert and the surrounding areas, and hopefully show you stuff that, you really can't find on Zillow or ChatGPT. So if that would be helpful for you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. So first we'll review the pros, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the cons, the stuff that you probably want to know. But pro number one is just safety and crime rate in Gilbert. Gilbert in many news articles has been ranked as one of the safest areas in not just Phoenix Metro, but Arizona. And a lot of, when we look at like crime indexes, when it looks at certain crimes reported per capita of residents, Gilbert has consistently been, one of the top cities. It's currently ranked number 2 next to Queen Creek, and both of those are pretty neck and neck with one another. And resources, when you guys are moving here, 2 resources I really like. The first one is crimegrade.org. This will give you a really good overall depiction of Phoenix Metro and where some of maybe the higher crime rates are compared to the lower crime rates. And then the second website, and this is a really particular important one when you're really home shopping, is communitycrimemap.com. This will actually, there's a lot of different filters that you can use on this website, but it'll tell you specific like emergency calls or crime reports in like a specific geographical area. So you can even, like, if you find a neighborhood you really like, you can actually go into that neighborhood and see what crimes have been reported in that specific area. And if you're moving out of state, one of the most common questions I get or requests when people are looking for, a specific neighborhood or a home, they're like, I want to be in a safe area. And the tricky part is that safe can be a relative term. It can be quite subjective. And depending where people are moving from, it's kind of hard to compare Gilbert to, a small town in Nebraska. But, if you use these websites, it will give you a really good idea. And another thing too, is when you get your boots on the ground, one of the best ways to get an idea of what the characters are in a specific area is like, around like 6, 7 p.m., go to the local grocery store and the local gas station. Particularly like a weekday evening, because most of the people in those 2 places are going to be residents that live in like a 1-2 mile radius of a specific neighborhood. That will give you really good insight quickly. Now, the second pro, and a huge reason we actually see a lot of people in the Phoenix metro area move to Gilbert, are the schools. Gilbert is definitely one of those school districts that has consistently ranked the highest, like on niche.com or greatschools.org. Gilbert also has a lot of charter schools, a lot more than some of the other surrounding cities in the Phoenix metro area. And these charter schools, if you go on the websites I just mentioned a few moments ago, those have consistently received very high rankings as well. So it is something I know a lot of families around here do elect to use the charter schools instead of public schools. And if you don't know already, Arizona isn't an open enrollment state. So even if you don't live in a specific school district, you can request to enroll your child in a different school district. They do have some like quotas they have to fit, like only so many kids or students can come from an outside school district. But if you're on top of it, for the most part, you can get in the school district that you want. Now, the third pro of living in Gilbert is Just the general cleanliness and, the city does a good job really maintaining the aesthetic. We have a lot of like beautiful landscaping that you don't necessarily always see in some of our neighboring cities. And they've done a great job too. Like a lot of entryways into neighborhoods are very beautiful with the landscaping. It's also a little greener, I would say, than some other cities. We just have more green spaces, more like mature trees, particularly compared to some areas that have newer development. And even things like the entryway into some of our big shopping centers like Santan Village or some of these new plazas they're putting in, they've really done a good job just making sure the storefronts look really pretty. And it feels cleaner than a lot of areas too. And something that's interesting, like if you live in a cold climate, in the wintertime when you get snow and it's been snowing a lot and it's gray and maybe you have salt in the roads and everything, it kind of gets like a little grimy. I would say it's kind of the opposite here in Arizona. When it gets really hot in the summer, it just kind of feels a little dirtier, but Gilbert stays pretty clean. It's pretty well maintained. And even our downtown area or Heritage District, they do a great job like putting up Halloween decorations or Christmas decorations. So it just gives a little more sense of community or character. So the fourth pro of living here are the parks, the trails, and some of the recreational areas that we have. And that's something that really helped me fall in love with Gilbert. Some of the parks we have, of course, we have Freestone Park, which is like the OG community park. There's a rec center there. There's tons of like basketball courts. There's a skate park. There's a batting cage. You got everything there. There's even a little train that goes around like the whole park. It's more of like for like little kids, but really cute activity to do. You also have Riparian Preserve. This is more of a nature preserve. Great area to like run around. They have like, I wouldn't call it a hike, maybe like a nature walk. Nature walk, that's what we'll call it. But really cool place, really quiet and tranquil. If you go there on a Saturday morning, you'll see a lot of like photographers out there trying to take photos of birds. It's just a really peaceful area when you want a moment to kind of slow down. And then as far as on the south side, we of course have Gilbert Regional Park, which is an insane park. It's absolutely gorgeous. They have tons of pickleball there. You want to get there early though, because they get filled up really, really quickly. Sand volleyball, they have an epic splash pad and playground. There's a huge amphitheater there. It's huge. I actually have a whole video talking about the parks in Gilbert, but really beautiful area. And then you also have a lot of trail systems. So if you want to go on like a run or a bike ride, there's a couple major ones. So we have a canal system, which is how we get our water from the Colorado River, but along the canals, they actually have bike trails. And you can go on here, like if you're training for a marathon, this is the place to go. And then we also have the Power Line Trail that goes from east to west, and it's another just great place to go on a run or a bike ride. Now, the fifth pro of living here is definitely that there's a lot of things to do compared to some other suburban areas that will be left unnamed. But this was actually, when I first moved here, probably the reason why I didn't want to live in Gilbert, because I felt like it was kind of a sleepy, boring town. But in the past 10 years, it's crazy to see the growth. Just the different restaurants we've gotten, like the downtown area has exploded. Santan Village, the shopping center there's so many different restaurants there as well. And then Agritopia is another area that, Joe's Farm Grill was there, but that was about it. Now we have so much going on there. Verde at Cooley Station, and they have plans for so much more coming to Gilbert in the next like couple years. So it's pretty wild, just the options that are available. And it's, I don't know, it's cool to see it grow in such a positive way. Now, when I first moved here, if you were going to go out, often you were going to like Scottsdale or like downtown Phoenix. And I was actually talking to my Uber driver a couple weeks ago, and he said he was seeing a trend that a lot of his drives were actually going to like downtown Gilbert and Chandler as well. But he said Gilbert was one of the areas that he was finding himself in more and more. And I really think that is a testament to the growth of Gilbert, and also just that it's not as sleepy anymore. It's not as boring. People are actually coming here to hang out. But let's talk about the cons, because these are the reasons why Gilbert may not work for you. And the first con is just affordability, particularly related to housing. So like many places, Gilbert has become a lot more expensive, compared to pre-COVID, right? We saw a huge influx in the median sales price between 2000 and 2022. And historically, Gilbert was such an affordable place. So it is kind of hard, I know, for a lot of people who have lived here for a really long time. I definitely understand that frustration. So right now, the median sales price is, it's been hovering around $600,000. And something to consider too is Gilbert, we do have a lot of like apartment rentals, or a fair amount. But as far as like for resale or for purchase, it's primarily going to be single family homes. You will find a handful of townhome options, but for the most part, it is going to be single family homes. And most of the single family homes are going to start, like even starter homes are going to be in the 500s. You can definitely find some that are less than 500. If you're open to 2-story homes that are on like a smaller lot, maybe you don't have a backyard, maybe it's more of just like a patio, can definitely find a handful of options in the 400s. Or if you're open to like maybe a home that needs a little TLC or is a little outdated, or maybe it's in a smaller lot, you can find those in the 400s. And then, as far as price point, it goes all the way up. I mean, we have homes on the market right now that are several $1,000,000. We have seen more and more luxury homes. And the interesting thing is, I know I've seen on like Reddit or social media, some conversations that Gilbert isn't affordable. Yeah, it's definitely become much more expensive. But when you look at the median household income in Gilbert, it's actually higher than, most parts of Phoenix. It's higher than Scottsdale, not Paradise Valley, but Scottsdale, and even Chandler. So we do have a lot of high income earners that live here. So I wouldn't say there's like economic instability and people actually can't afford living here. It's just not near as inexpensive as it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now, the second con of living here is related to housing as well. And this is something I hear from a lot of people, is the homes are very much like cookie cutter. I joke that it's like the builders did copy and paste. And this is something you'll find generally in the Southwest of the United States. Now, if you're looking more at higher priced homes or even luxury homes, you're of course going to find, homes that are custom built or have more unique features. But if you're looking for more of a starter home, you're probably going to be in a community where there's, 4, 5, 6 different models throughout that subdivision. However, we do have a lot of beautiful neighborhoods. I mean, there's Morrison Ranch, which is super green. Agritopia is definitely a very famous one, very beautiful neighborhood, and some lake communities like the Islands and Val Vista. We don't have a lot of historic homes. There's a couple pockets like right around downtown, but a lot of the construction was built in like the 80s, 90s. And then as the further south you go in Gilbert, a lot of that was built like in the 2000s onward. So if you are looking for that more unique home or maybe that historic home, you're definitely going to have more options in areas that were older cities, more established areas. I mean, Mesa around downtown definitely has some beautiful historic neighborhoods. And then of course, like Central Phoenix, Midtown area, some of those areas are absolutely beautiful and definitely have many more unique homes. Now, the third con of Gilbert is that there's not a lot of land here. I know a lot of people that are coming from particularly the Midwest who are used to having like larger yards or more space. They're kind of shocked. I think it's a little bit of a culture shock coming down here. And the thing is, Gilbert is pretty developed already. There's definitely some homes that have larger lots, like acre lots, a fair amount of pockets. I do actually highlight a lot of these neighborhoods. But the thing is, when you're looking for like something that's an acre lot, it comes with a price here in Arizona in the Phoenix metro area. For the most part, like an acre lot is going to be in the $1,000,000+ range. Once in a blue moon, you'll see a home that's on an acre lot that's less than $1 million, but it's kind of a rare commodity and can be competitive. And if you're looking for new construction, we don't have as many new construction options in Gilbert. You're definitely going to have more options, more to pick from if you go further out, like to Queen Creek, certain pockets of Mesa, Apache Junction. They're building a huge master plan community there called Blossom Rock. And then, of course, Santan Valley is definitely going to have the most amount of options. There's a few communities in Gilbert, just not a ton. And most of them are going, like if you're looking for more of a starter type home, going to have better luck going out to like Santan Valley. But if you're looking for something that's, maybe closer to that, like $8-9 million price point, you will have some options in Gilbert. And then there's a few that are like in the $600,000 range. And if you want space or more of that rural feel, I would definitely head more to the south part of Gilbert. It's definitely not quite as condensed. It's not a huge difference from North Gilbert, but it is a little bit quieter. And if you really want more of that rural country feel, I'm definitely going to places like Apache Junction or certain parts of Mesa or Santan Valley. You're going to find a more quiet way of life. Reason number 4, and not to move here, is the traffic and the growth that we have seen here. Yeah, like I'm sure you've noticed in this conversation that we've had a lot of growth in Gilbert, for better or worse. I personally think it's for better, but I know there are a lot of residents here who don't feel great about it. They aren't super ecstatic with the growth and with the amount of people that have moved here and the new developments that we've had here. Now, with all the new developments that we've had here, it's definitely brought in more cars, and we are a car-driven city. We do not really have public transportation here. You're going to need a vehicle to get around. And on our main roads, and by the way, we have like a perfect grid system. It's like every block is a perfect mile, and this is throughout Phoenix Metro. But those main like grid roads, those are what we call surface streets, and those roads can get backed up a fair amount, particularly if you're like driving past the school pickup line. That could be a nightmare. And of course, during like more rush hour times, it just does get a little bit more congested. And I will tell you, they're doing a lot of construction on roads around here too. So if you have a laned block, it can get backed up quite a bit. Now, I think traffic is definitely a very relative thing. I used to live in like downtown Phoenix and close to downtown Tempe, and the traffic there was a lot worse, in my personal opinion, than it is in Gilbert. So it just depends. I mean, if you're coming from a small town, more of a rural town, it may feel a little congested. But if you're coming from LA, Atlanta, you're going to love it here. It's going to be easy. So it just really depends. And it is kind of a funny or quirky thing. We do see the traffic get a little bit worse during the nicer months, during the winter months. And it's not that we don't really have a huge snowbird population in Gilbert. You're definitely going to find more snowbirds like in Mesa or like, Sun Lakes or Sun City on the west side. But it's still, they're still there. And there's people here that are not just snowbirds, but people that live here seasonally as well. That does contribute to some of the congestion we have in the wintertime. Now, the 5th reason not to move here, and this was something I saw a lot of people post on social media, that it's too far out. Again, this is kind of something, it depends what you're looking for. If you are planning on commuting to Central Phoenix or even certain parts of Tempe, Scottsdale, definitely check your commute times, because depending on where you are in Gilbert, it could take you a lot longer than you anticipate. Particularly if you are more on that south part of Gilbert, like the very, very south part of Gilbert, you are several miles away from a highway. The closest major highway is going to be the 202. Can easily add another 15 minutes to your commute. And then, during rush hour, it's going to take longer to get to those places like Central Phoenix. So definitely do your homework on that to see if those commute times work for you. Now, I know a lot of people in Gilbert that still commute to places like Central Phoenix or Scottsdale, but it's definitely something you just want to be aware of before you actually purchase a home. But there's also a lot of employment centers in the East Valley. And then there's a lot of people that work from home too. So all in all, Gilbert isn't near as far as like Queen Creek, but if you are trying to be more central, or you need to get to the airport regularly, or you're planning on working in Central Phoenix, just make sure you, when you go on Google Maps, you're checking the box during the rush hour times, like 6 to 9 a.m. And in the evenings, I would change it, between like, I would say probably 3:30 is when it starts getting really bad, to like 6, 7 o'clock, and just see what those traffic patterns are before you commit to Gilbert. And if you are planning on buying a home in the Phoenix East Valley and you want to get a better idea of what locations or what cities may work for you and your specific needs, your family's specific needs, go ahead. There's a link below where you can actually schedule a time to chat with me, and we can review some things and see if Gilbert's a good option, or more importantly, if there's another city that more closely resonates with your needs. And if you want to learn more about Gilbert, I do have this playlist right here with a lot of different videos talking about various things about this city. Go ahead and check that out. Thank you so much for your time, and have a fantastic day.